This is the Phoenix mind, where the fire refines, break the chains and rise to shine. Rise stronger, lead with heart, every end a brand new start. With Lisa Manzo, we transform, we ignite. This is the Phoenix mind.
Hi, welcome to the Phoenix Mind Podcast. I'm Lisa Manzo, your host, and today my special guest is Cesar R. Espino, and I'm going to read you Cesar's bio so you can hear all about him. Cesar was born in Mexico City during a severe financial crisis, raised by a single mother in poverty, and lived in a 200 square foot home without running water or flooring. Wow, Cesar. When his mother migrated to the U.S. in search of a better life, Cesar began working at a young age to survive. Today, he holds a master's degree in business administration, has built a career in corporate America, and is the author of the You Can Do Anything, Even When the World Says No. As a real estate investor, father, and grandfather, Cesar's mission is to empower, educate, inspire others through his story of resilience and transformation. Cesar, welcome and thank you for being here.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you for having me. I'm so super excited to be here and share this space with you. So thank you for that.
Wow. And just from your bio, do tell, because you say you went from as a child, which living in a 200 square foot, which how big is that? Give me give
It,
me give me a visual on that. How big would that be?
I will say that 20 feet by 10 feet.
Okay, good. I got that. So like a
All right.
bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
Really.
like one bedroom. And then you've gone on and you have a master's degree. And wow, what an incredible story. So tell us a little bit more. What?
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of gave us the footnotes version or whatever they call it, right? But just kind of going back more to that. I mean, I always tell people that my story and who I am now really it started from my humble beginnings, right? And you talked about just being in a 200 square foot house, and I call it a house. Really, it was just a little room, right? But it was my home. That was my home for my mom, my grandmother, my older brother, myself, and no running water, no electricity, nothing going on, for us there. And I was only born to one parent. My mom, I never met, and to this day I don't even know his name. My biological father, and nevertheless, it was just the four of us. And so it was just literally 3 months after I turned four that my mom decided to take her leap of faith, how I like to reference to it, right? Her leap of faith, and decided to migrate to the States to be able to give us a better life. And to me, that was a turning point in my life. And we often go through a lot of different things in life where you find moments in life, right, that create a pivotal moment for you to act and do different things. For me, at the age of four, what that meant is that being from not having really anything, I was essentially forced, right? Not by my mom or my grandmother, but by society, by just the external factors. I was forced to start working to be able to provide for our family, right? And so we went from a four, member family to just a three-member family, which was my mom's mom, my grandma, which I call mom, and then my older brother and myself. And we used to work by doing cookies and taquitos and a bunch of stuff at the flea market or the swap meet. And that was okay, but it wasn't really paying the bills, right? One thing that I gotta say that I'm very humble about is that my grandmother really wanted us to get an education, and so I never dropped out of school. I would actually go to school, come out of school. If there was anything to eat, great. Sometimes there was nothing to eat, and all we ate was what I consider to be one of the best Mexican dish, which is a tortilla with grain of salt, and that's all we had, right, to eat. I still love that though. To this moment, I'm like I can have that all day long, right? But anyway, sometimes we wouldn't have anything, and we'll just eat that, and then right after that, we'll have to do something to perform, to create, or some sort of work. A few times I tried to get away, to be a regular kid, to go out and play soccer with the neighbors and do things like that. And I remember my mom, my grandmother, again, I call my mom. My mom, she came out with a belt and started beating me up to get back into the house and work. And while I don't condemn anybody at an early age to work. I get it. I understand. That was my reality. I couldn't afford to be out and be playing with kids. I couldn't afford to do that. And I needed to work. And so I get it. I understand that. And so that was ingrained on me at an early age, to the point where we couldn't make enough money with selling things at the flea market or the swap meet. So then my grandmother decided to get us a sewing machine. She got one, and my older brother got one, I got one. So if anybody here wants next year's Halloween costume, just go ahead and let me know, and I can tailor you
You
some.
sew, you can sew, Caesar?
I
I
could,
had
yeah, I
no
could.
idea.
I could. And so, we were doing that, right? And so we did whatever we could to make ends meet. And then I came at the age of 10. My mom finally came back after 6 years, came back to Mexico for us to come back, and she said, "Hey, I'm taking you guys to the States." And I didn't understand it. And I'm gonna give you one more lesson, because I can go on this story, but one lesson that I learned, finally I came to the States, and I did come here illegally. It took me about 2 months to cross the border. Not 2 months, sorry, 2 weeks to cross the border. It wasn't an easy transition. It wasn't like I just landed here on a plane. Like, literally, I struggled to get here. Except I'm grateful that I got here. But I remember something. I remember that one time, the person that I see as my father now, who is really my stepdad, at one point he was taking me to get a haircut, and I got into an argument with him. I was so pissed. I didn't really have a relationship with my mom because she was gone for 6 years
Yeah.
of my life, and I was like, as a kid, you're like, what did I do? Why doesn't she love me? Did she abandon me? There was the abandonment aspect there, right? Nevertheless, I got into an argument with my stepdad, my dad, and I said, first of all, you are not my father, and you cannot tell me what to do. Why don't you just send me back to Mexico? I don't belong here. So here's the lesson that I want to point out with that. How many times are we in a position where we feel so comfortable being in a place that we're so afraid to be uncomfortable and discover something new? That was me then. I was comfortable being poor. I was comfortable not having food. I was comfortable working as a kid. I was comfortable not being in this great nation that gave me an opportunity. I was so uncomfortable because I didn't speak the language. I have no friends. I didn't really have anything. And so I didn't want to step into that. And I'm glad they didn't send me back. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation, and I would have never met you. Except, again, it goes back to that. Sometimes we grow when we're uncomfortable, and we got to step into that to be able to learn how to go to the next level.
Oh, absolutely. And you touched on a little bit, and I want to, because we're about emotional intelligence here. And
Mhm.
I heard you say that you were angry, and I don't blame you, because you're 4 years old, your mom goes away for 6 years, and now she's back, and you're like, oh my, so you're mad. And children don't know how to direct their anger,
Right.
and so your stepdad got the brunt of it, and it was probably more towards your mom. How were you able to get past that? How were you able to get past your anger? And because we as adults know your mother took a leap of faith, and she jumped, and she had to leave you behind in order to bring you. But a 4-year-old doesn't understand that.
Yeah, exactly. And again, even when I got here, I didn't get it. I get it now. I understand
Yeah.
now why. And again, you're right. As a kid, you start questioning yourself, and you start kind of looking for that validation. Am I good enough? And why would they leave me? I have no father. I have no mom. I mean, I have a mom, but she's left me, right? You start thinking about these things. And so for me, again, it was back to that point where when I came here to the States, didn't know the language, didn't know anybody. And after having that conversation with my stepdad, and going through a lot of ups and downs and feeling lonely, I came to the realization that, one, I was not going nowhere, right? And so I was not going nowhere. So then at that point, I have two options, maybe more, but two primary options. Number one, I can continue to be rebellious, and then just not, give in, and oftentimes that can lead to, and I seen it too, and I saw it actually, where it can lead to, let me find comfort someplace else. Let me get into gangs. Let me get into drugs. Let me get into other things that are not serving me. For me, it was the opposite. I said, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna surrender. I'm gonna surrender. I'm not surrendering to give up, though. I surrendered to understand. I surrendered to say, you know what? This is going to be my new norm. And so, therefore, I got to make the best out of that. So, my surrendering was to be able to make a change. And when I made that change, of realizing that I was not going nowhere and I needed to make the best out of it, then within 2 years I was able to communicate and I was able to learn the language and I became what we consider to be a schoolboy, getting only A's, being volunteering every vacation to work at the work experience at school, right? So I went ahead and decided to go that route, and I think that's how I cope with that, right? Realizing that if I wanted this to be better, then I need to do that.
And I know, because I know you personally, but
Yes,
I know that like you're a mother, because she led you by example and she took that leap of faith, you were able to take a leap of faith in your own life
correct.
and
Yes.
shift your life. So tell us a little bit about the leap of faith and how you let go and moved on to the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah. For sure. So, you mentioned it earlier, there's so many different things that I've gone through life. One of them, even to include that, I got here, when I was 10, 15 years old. The girl that I had that I was dating ended up getting her pregnant. So then I had my daughter at the age of 16. So I'm here like, hey, man, now you're a kid having a kid. And obviously everybody will judge you and everybody's like, you're not gonna do anything, you're not gonna drop out of school, you're not gonna take care of your kid, you're a failure, all these different things. And I said, you know what? That's your opinion, not mine. And I wanted to make sure, one of the things that I did is I wanted to make sure that my daughter had everything that I didn't have as a kid. That she didn't have to suffer the way I suffered. That she didn't have to work the way I worked as a kid, right? So that became my mission, and so she became my, to an extent, and to a lot of it, she became my purpose, my why, my reason to fight for the things that I wanted to. That was, and I'm talking about from the ages of 16 to about the ages of 18 when I graduated high school. I still managed to graduate with honors, even after working full time and even after taking care of my daughter. At that time, the mom, she had moved in with me. We lived together for about 7 years and so on. And then I said, you know what? I gotta go back to school. Yeah, I finished high school. I could have chosen just to stay someplace else. I decided to go back to school because I have a different opinion about it now. Except again, my grandmother, my family said, "Hey, you gotta make sure that you go to school, get a good education, graduate, and then get a good job and get the shiny object and retire." Right. So I was following that path because I went all the way through
Yeah.
my master's, and so because of that, I was also working on trying to prove myself at corporate, trying to prove myself that I deserve this job and all the promotions that came with that. Hence why I went back to get my master's at the age of 30. I was 30, I think, when I went back to get my master's, right? Because I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to move up in the corporate ladder. Yet I realized something maybe in my mid 30s that I'm like, you know what? There's got to be something more for me. There's got to be something more for me. I didn't just come here this far to be let down because my first book, right, I did in 2019, talks about you can overcome anything, even when the world says no. Because society, external factors, friends, whatever, have told me, hey, you have a kid at 16, you're not gonna make it. My job, yeah, we're gonna give you a promotion, but you gotta give me more, right? Kind of thing. I was getting all these no's left and right. And so I think for me, mid 30s, right? Which a lot of people at different times you decide different things, right? But at mid 30s, I mean, I was doing good. I was a little bit overweight. I was working long hours, corporate job, making over six figures, traveling all over the place, doing all these things for with this company. But I realized it wasn't my job. It wasn't me, right? And so at the age of 38, I went through a transition, which is around the time that I met you, 2017, 2018, is when I said, you know what? I need to I need to take a leap of faith. It's my time to take a leap of faith. And sure enough, I decided this early in 2018, but it wasn't not until November of 2018, almost 11 months later, that I actually took the leap of faith of leaving my corporate secure job that was
Yeah.
making me good money, left that to become a full-time entrepreneur. And then through that, though, I was discovering myself. I was going through a lot of self-development events, which is where I met you and was doing a lot of things in that area.
Oh, I love personal development. It's really shifted my whole entire being. And you know that because you knew who the person you were when you met me in
Yeah,
2018
yeah,
and who
you
I am today. I'm a completely different person.
100%. When I met you, it was like I was seeing two Lisas.
Oh yeah, because I was so depressed and angry and all that stuff. And I like to talk about it because I'm so joyful now and I'm grateful for the friendship and I'm grateful that we're here because we get to talk about it and show people that you can move on and there is light at the other end. And when I took my first step, and it sounds like you did the same thing, I didn't know what the next step was. I just took the first one because I said to myself, there's got to be more. And it
Yeah.
sounds like to me that you're saying the same thing. You know what I find really interesting, which I think is so amazing, is the path that you took. Because a lot of times when people grow up and they're oppressed, they go in the other direction. And you had mentioned it that you could have joined gangs, you could have did this. And I'm so grateful to have met you and you didn't make those choices.
Right.
And and you were young when you understood you didn't want to make those choices. Where did that wisdom come from? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I think again it goes back to I always like to go back to the point of when I was that 4-year-old kid that didn't have anything that had to work. I think it really came from that. And again, the biggest thing is I I do believe is because my grandmother instilled in me, hey, you got to go to school, you got to graduate, you have to have that good education. Whereas if I think if she would have said no, just drop out of school and work, then I would probably have a different perspective of life, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I made a lot of mistakes throughout my life and things that I necessarily probably not regret, but I've learned out of it. And there's some, I'm a huge open book. It's on my very first book, the things that I talked about, where I made some really wrong decisions because of anger and things like that, where I ended up in jail and things like that.
Lisa, you mean you were human?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. And did all that, except again, I never joined any of the other stuff. Although I was uh, involved, not involved, but I was. It was in my surroundings, right? The influence was there. I never decided to go that route because I just didn't feel it. To this day, I don't feel it. Right? I never did drugs. It wasn't my thing. If anything, the only thing I do is like, hey, give me a glass of wine or give me a beer or something like that. That's my drug, maybe. Right?
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't do anything else. Except again, I think it just came and started from that, right? Growing up and my grandmother saying, "Hey, you can do better than that."
Is your grandmother still alive?
She's not. Unfortunately, she's
Uh,
not. She passed away several years back. Yeah.
uh, but you have let's talk about rebuilding your relationship with your mom after not seeing her for 6 years. What was that like? Because, people, that happens to people. And,
Yeah.
she left for 6 years to give you a better life. And how were you guys able to rebuild? Because do you have a good relationship now?
I do for sure. I do, and again, when I go back and think about it, right? She didn't do anything wrong. I mean, really, she didn't.
No.
I mean, and even when I came here, I was 10. While she was working long hours, and she tried to do her best to make up for the time that was lost. It really kind of came down to realizing that I was the one that I needed to heal my inner child, right?
Yeah.
Um, Even so, this can be a whole total conversation too. But my older brother, who I grew up with, when I came to the States, I for me it was really just it was three of us: my grandmother, my older brother, and I. And my brother is pretty smart. He's older than me by 2 years. At the age of 12, when I turned 12, 13 plus or minus, he got a scholarship to go to a different middle school in no, sorry, a high school, to go to high school in Minnesota. So 2 years into us coming to the States, he goes to Minnesota, right? My grandmother goes back to Mexico, and I'm here with my mom and my stepdad. And out of all of that, I think I held the biggest grudge against my brother. And I will get very
Uh,
sentimental because I felt like, hey,
yeah.
man, it was just us. My grandma, I get it, it was her too, but I understand her, but it was us. We grew up together so close to each other that I felt this grudge. And every time I will have that conversation, I'll tear up. And I send him so many letters, and I feel like you betrayed me and you left me, you abandoned me because I'm like, my mom left, my grandma left, and you're two gonna do this to me. And so it wasn't until like probably when I was 18, 20, 21 that I kind of healed that with my brother and had a very deep conversation after I wrote like a 3-page letter because there was a lot of emotional baggage there. that I did that. And so again, it really came down to me. And so part of that is also me working through my own internal factors that were taking place through the self-development, through the next level, through going and getting certified as a NLP. And I did the NLP specifically more for me to get through that. And you know that because that's what we did that
Right.
together. So
Yes.
all of that working on my mind, working on my head. And so I would say the last 10 years I have really dedicated myself to self-development, growth, mindset, and then really seeing life from a different perspective.
Oh yeah, I like to look at things from a different perspective. I actually had something come up for me yesterday, and I'm like, "Oh, how could I have done that better?" Because yesterday I like to call it a human moment. I had a
Mm,
human moment, and it was just a day, and I said something that wasn't nice. I could have said it nicer. It needed to be said, yet I could have said it nicer.
mm-hmm.
And I didn't. And then their response to me, which was probably, you know, because of the way I said it to them. So I'm taking my role in this, right? And then I told them, "Well, you're a guest here."
Ah, yeah, gotcha.
And basically, you should act like a guest, but I could have said it nicer.
Yeah, right, for sure.
So
Yeah,
anytime any kind of opportunity, like any kind of conflict comes up, I just see it as an opportunity for personal growth. What could I do different next time? Or what did I do right this time? And oh, I did something different this time and I'm proud of myself. So you kind of apply that same kind of thought process to your life.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I definitely reflect and ponder on the different things that I'm doing and how I'm reacting to certain things, right? That's something that I started doing for sure more so when I began my journey.
Yeah, you know what I really like? I like the fact that you say you can overcome anything and with with whatever, like with determination, with love, whatever,
Hmm.
right? And you're absolutely right. You can overcome anything. It's just a matter of choice.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a good point that you bring that up. There's one thing that I keep telling people that I tell people, right? And as a matter of fact, I was just talking about this last week when I was on stage, and I talked about the idea that really your future you is dependent on your today, on your now you, right? And it comes on with this one thing, and it comes on to the choices and the decisions that you make today will determine the quality of life that you have tomorrow. The challenge is that we as people are so afraid to make a choice as if that was the one thing that's holding us back. And it's not really that. What is holding people back from making a choice is the aftermath, the results from that choice, right? And so in reality, you need to just make that choice and take whatever that might be. And if it's not working for your favor or it's not giving you the results that you want, you do have the opportunity to pivot and make another choice, yet you got to do it now.
Yeah, you always have another choice. And I always tell people if you want to do something different, take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and on the one side you write what you would normally do, and on the other side you write what else you could do, what you could do instead, and pick something from the other list. That doesn't work out, pick something else. Keep
Right.
going.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's amazing. So, Caesar, I have like two more questions for you. And so, when people want to learn more about you or from you, how can they do that?
Yeah, you can just go to my website, CesarRespino.com, or just Google my name, Cesar R. Espino, and all of my books, my everything that I have going on will come up, interviews, things like that. So you can Google me or just go to my website or any social media too. Most of my social media is CesarRespino.com. Or
Okay, and so here's this is always my last question for my guests. So when you were going through something, and it doesn't have to be from childhood, can be from any point in your life.
Mhm.
What's some tool that you use to help you keep going and to just keep moving forward? What do you got for the audience here?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I've learned throughout my life and all the things that I've been doing right now, right? Um, uh, Before I get to some of the things that I do right now, the one advice that I can also tell people that I've learned too is that and it's gonna be a relationship advice, but not in terms of relationships. It's more a relationship advice between you, right? You and yourself. And the advice is that you want to make sure that you are not, okay, cheating on your future with your past. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes we get hung up on the past, or I could have done this better, or you're blaming yourself for whatever that might be. And understand that the past is not a life sentence, is merely an experience or an emotional experience or something that you can extract the lessons that you can learn from, apply today so you can have a better tomorrow. Again, though, a lot of people don't do that. They fall on that trap of, let me live in the past, right? And you're just neglecting your future. When it comes down to some tools that you can do, one of the things that I've did as part of my growth, and I still do to this point, is I like to, and you probably hear this a lot, but I do like to do this. I like to journal. I like to journal ideas, thoughts, and things like that every day in the morning. I also do affirmations. Okay, I also like to get rid of anything that might be negative to an extent. I'll go out for a walk. I started doing this when we did 75 hard many years ago. I took this practice of when I go out for walking, I walked every day now, whether it's one or twice a day, I walked, and then I will listen to some motivational stuff. Could be your podcast, could be like this podcast. Anything that is going to help me get further in life. So those are some of the three things that I would say, well, if you can do on a day-to-day basis and you're committed to it, you're going to be a different person in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome. Cesar, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Lisa, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And I'm Lisa Manzo, your host. This has been another episode of the Phoenix Mind Podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.
This is the Phoenix Mind, where the fire refines. Together we rise, transform our lives. So subscribe, share the flame, help a friend.